I just love being in that state of just chaos. I find it difficult to be told what to do. I don't like it. That's a huge motivation for me if someone tells me no. Sophie, if you want it, you go and get it. Somewhere in India, found myself. And that was the first time I'd painted since I was like at school. I just fell in love. If anyone wants this painting, then we'll do like a little raffle. Entered as little as £1. Overnight, the raffle made £50,000. I mean, I can only speak as an artist, but I really see small artists doing amazing work and reaching a hell of a lot more people than I could have reached. Like, the time is now.
Today, I'm welcoming a special guest to the show, the British-born and international visual artist, Sophie Tea. Defined by her vibrant use of colour, her energetic drips and her signature splats, her work champions inclusivity, self-acceptance, accessibility, and it strives to make women feel just a little bit nicer about themselves. In 2023, Sophie launched her first coffee table book, Send Nudes, which sold over 1,000 copies in just 6 minutes. And it led to the announcement of the Send Nudes live show that took place at the London Palladium. Now, Sophie began her painting journey with no art degree, no contacts, and just a small amount of skill. After rejection from every single gallery she applied for, Sophie knew that she would have to take a different approach if she was going to succeed and to elevate her brand to the cult status that it is today. Sophie's powerful message of inclusivity, well, it's an essential part of her brand, and it's been embraced by her passionate followers. And now she's with us today to let us in on her journey as an international visual artist. Right, Sophie, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Better for seeing you after all these years.
I know, it's been a while, hasn't it?
I know, man.
Been around the world. Anyway, so we're going to get into that a little bit later because I know obviously we go back to university and I'm going to go into university and your whole career in a minute. But you've just filled in the graph of life. How was that for you, just going back to the start of your life?
Yeah, interesting. I never really look back, ever.
Why's that?
I think I've just got a terrible memory and I just... Also, I don't know, I think I'm just always like, next, more.
So interesting just because we had Ben Francis and Joe Foster, fan of Gymshark and Reebok, who both said the same thing. And that they just like forward looking.
Yeah.
Like, do you ever sit and just like be like, oh, how did that go? Or like, oh, look at what we did last year? Or not
honestly,
really?
never. And it's to my detriment sometimes because there's lots of learnings in the post-mortem analysis of like projects, I guess, or life. But absolutely never.
No. Okay, interesting. Right, we'll get into that in a bit, I'm sure. But as we look back, I'm just looking at your graph of life then. Started out on a high. But what is your earliest childhood memory? Like, what comes to your mind?
Seen about this before. I think it would probably be in my Nana Min's lounge room.
What's Nana Min like?
She passed away actually a year and 2 days ago.
Really?
But she was amazing. She my mum's actually adopted into a Jamaican family. So she is so she came over from Jamaica in the 60s. And she's just as funny, dry as they come. Yeah, so and she always had heating on really hot, and I was just like thinking about that memory. I was like, yeah, I was hot. I was definitely hot in her lounge room. And also I have this other memory of like when I remember like loads of weird old people in my back garden.
Right.
And it was my mum's 30th birthday.
Wow.
And now I'm 31.
Gosh.
Do you know what I mean? Like they were old and weird and like now I'm older than them. So that was a memory. But...
Oh. And you grew up in Northwich in Cheshire, right?
Yes. I mean, I could tell you a boring story about it. Wasn't actually, I mean, I was born in Wolverhampton.
Like, so was I.
Were you? Newcastle still?
Newcastle still. Is it on your passport?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's never leaving us.
Yeah. I know. Okay. Talking about passports, I've got 2 days left. I flew in last night and the guy at the border was like, wow. And I know, I really smashed it. I'm actually really proud of myself for not losing it for 10 years, which is very unlike me.
Yeah.
Anyway, Wolverhampton born.
Yeah.
Birmingham, Solihull, was there till I was about 8.
Right.
Then Northwich, which I know you're from.
Yeah.
And then, I was there till I went to uni back in Birmingham.
And what was life like for you growing up?
Super positive. I have
Yeah.
fabulous
Oh.
parents. You couldn't like play one against the other because they were both like strong and had each other's backs.
Yeah. And I think because you're one thing I love, I know you've got good vision and you're always dreaming big, whether you'll say you do or you don't, like you really do. But were you like that as a young girl? What was like young Sophie like? If we like looked at her now, she's 8 years old, she's in school. What was she like?
I think I was always just allowed to be messy and myself by my mum. I remember like being on the kitchen table and doing like art homework, and all my friends, our house was like the social house because mum would just like let everyone in like a hostel. And I was just allowed to, I remember my friend Hannah, who used to work for me until recently, was like, yeah, your house was just the one that everyone used to do their art homework in because your mum didn't mind because she just like let you free. So I think that's a big memory of mine. I don't think there was ever like something I couldn't do.
Yeah. But I think that's so interesting because I met some, I can't name names here, right? Some parents the last few months, and they were saying, so what's happening this week? Oh, my kids are doing this scheduled to the minute.
Yeah.
Extra maths class, extra this. And I was like, okay, that's lovely as an investment in your kid. But it sounds like your mum was just like, yeah, just go with it, get creative. Like,
definitely. But then my dad was the strict one, which is bizarre because now he's so soft, but everyone was scared of him when we were younger.
Yeah.
But I was definitely allowed that freedom. I do remember like having an innate sense like within myself that I do have to complete things though. I remember like I hated brownies, and I went for like 3 years or something, and like everyone was like collecting their badges, and I'd like forget my badge or forget what I had to do, or just like was just confused by like the hierarchy in it. You had to like memorize like this thing to like get into brownies, and I like couldn't do it. And I did it for 3 years. I remember my dad picked me up one time, and I was just like, he was like, "Did you have a nice time?" I was like, "Dad, I just like really just like don't like brownies." He was like, "Soph, you don't have to do it anymore then."
Oh.
I was like, I remember thinking, I didn't think that was allowed.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, like that attitude is something my parents have. Like, if you don't want to do it, like no worries. Like,
and I think just for people who are watching this around the world who don't know brownies, I guess how would you describe brownies? I guess it's like a club, when we're young.
It? Yeah, that you kind of go and you like learn friendship and kindness and like I don't know what. I mean, I guess the
scouts and
the boy version seemed a bit more fun, to be honest. Because I think we sat around and did knitting. Which actually, on reflection, I became an artist and I'd quite like to do knitting now. But I think being told what to do at certain times, like really just upsets me. It still does.
So is that what, I'm the same, right? So back, if somebody tells you what to do, what do you do? Do you do the opposite or do you?
I definitely, I think like I'm quite, and I think that's why I've decided to go with this career that I have, because I find it difficult to be told what to do. And I don't think it's an admirable trait, to be honest. I find it quite difficult. Yeah. I don't like it. No. And I guess I'm nonconformist in that way, but like, well, I don't like when there's structures in place for people to like go and live their life, or like there's kind of like, I don't know, like a list of things that you need to be successful. I hate the fact that like as like society like deems like that a success and that not. Like I think as individuals we all have to come up with our own meaning of success that doesn't fit in because we're all different. I don't know. I feel really strongly about that, and I didn't realize that, even though I guess my parents gave me the permission to not. I don't think I realized that until I was about 22.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which I want to come back to, one, what happened when you're 22 in that moment in a bit. But just before you went off to university then, so you doing art homework, everyone's doing it at your mum's house, like you're allowed to be messy, nobody's telling you what to do, you've like said not going to brownies. Then you're like 16, 17, rebel. And then you go off to uni and you study business and management at Aston University.
Yeah.
Shout out to Aston. Like, business and management.
Oh my God, I know. Well, I'm very glad I did that, to be honest, because I mean, I think being an artist is like honestly being an entrepreneur in its most pure form. Like it's about branding, you've got to market yourself. And I think that's why I did that.
Did you never want to study art?
Honestly, like I think throughout your life, there's people that you respect that say things that you keep on to. For example, I always loved art, but I think very early on it was kind of hammered into me that, you know, just because you're good at it at school doesn't mean you can make a career out of it. That's quite like a common thing that people say, I guess, with creatives, I think. And I just didn't realize I was able to. Do you know what I mean? And I think it was only out of being constantly rejected from every single other thing, or like not being good enough for other things, that I did just naturally fall back into the art.
Yeah.
I remember you say Aston University. Yeah. My God, that was my second choice.
And was it? Where were you going to go?
Where was I going to go? Where I wanted to go was Warwick, and I remember.
Me too. That was one of. Anyway.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so weird. Yeah.
And I think they wanted like. I don't know, it's so funny. I'm always in my head, I always think that I'm like, I've just like this huge juxtaposition. I always think I'm better than I am, and then I always think I'm fucking like worse than I am. But in this situation, I like was like, I'm going to, I think they wanted like A star, AA or something fucking stupid. I've literally got like B, I don't know, A or something.
Yeah.
So there's absolutely no way. And I got the results from results day. And I remember my dad being like, Sophie, if you want it, you go and get it. So we drove by Ford KA to Warwick from Manchester, and I went and I walked up to the woman on reception. I was like, look, I didn't get the grades, but I'm showing you that I really want to be here.
Wow.
Like, is it all? They were like, honey, like, go home. You didn't get the grade. Do you know what I mean?
And where was Dad? In the car with you?
Dad was waiting in the car. And I think, I don't know, it's just funny because
that's so interesting. So, I put Aston. And then actually Warwick was going to be another choice, but I went and the student accommodation was horrible.
Yeah.
And my mum and dad were like, you're not staying in it. So actually, like, we lucked out in the end, right? But that's so interesting. You went there, your dad literally drove you, was like, she didn't get it. Don't accept that as a no.
Don't accept it. And I have that still.
Love it.
I mean, I still, don't accept it. No, I mean, I'm constantly being rejected, like, for absolutely everything. So annoying. But, like, I think that is a driver for me. I'm just like, no, sorry. No.
Yeah. But I think a lot, though, like when we look at rejection, so many people don't get rejected because they're just sat living in their comfort zone. Whereas in order to get rejected, you're like, I'm going to try something new that it might feel out of what I can reach, but screw it.
Yeah. I think, well, I'm a bit tapped in that respect because I definitely, my risk appetite and my need to be on the edge of chaos at all times is like pretty high. Like I enjoy that position of uncertainty.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. My motivation to do stuff is just like non-existent if it's not like completely urgent or like completely like you're going to lose everything. I don't know. It's weird. Like, but whatever, I think I'm 31 now and I'm like finally coming to terms with that actually just is who I am. Like, it's fine. I mean, there's bits that I do need to do to like look after myself a bit.
But on that note, when we look back at university, you've graduated with a first class honours, which I feel like we don't speak about that ever anymore, right? Stalked your LinkedIn,
Thank you for remembering that. My mum will be very happy.
Yeah. But right, and here's my question. That takes hard work. Or are you one of these people who just goes in and smashes it?
No, I'm absolutely not that person. Right. I'm the person that works the hardest and is not the smartest, 100%. Like, I've always been that person. Like,
so at uni, were you quite disciplined when you had to be? To get your work
well,
done?
Luckily for Aston University, our final year was weighted 75%. So I spent the first 3 years drinking. And then the final year, I got my act together and was like, oh God, like, yeah. I very much enjoyed uni, actually. It's the period of my life that I'm like, wow, I just wasn't thinking about business or progressing myself at all, which is completely alien because now that is all I fucking think about. It's all I do. I don't have a social life. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. Like, I'm literally just so obsessed with the business and being better. But I mean, that period, I'm like, I don't remember it. I think I was just out getting smashed. Well, we were, weren't we? Like, it was fun.
But it is fun. And I think, as you say, there's just so much to like learn from all of that stuff that like again, I don't really drink at all now. Yeah. And I just realize like what's important in my life and what makes me the best version of myself. And it's not the stuff that I once thought it was. But then, so you go through university. Did you do a placement year? Yeah. A
placement year. And I always think Aston's so amazing for that because if I had gone to Warwick, then we would have done 3 years and then we would have come out in the workforce. And it was in that placement year I worked at GlaxoSmithKline. Working on Aquafresh Kids toothpaste. And it was then that I realized I was just not cut out for an office. Like I just always like pictured my life and I was like, I am going to be a success.
Yeah.
And then it just wasn't manifesting itself in a workplace. I like wanted to come in and like talk about my Tinder dates and everyone was like, Sophie, have you done what we've asked? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I forgot what you asked. Like I was just away with the fairies. So I think it was then I realized that, oh my God, I've actually have to do something that I'm interested in. Otherwise I'm going to be a blob.
So you finished, you did the whole year in placement. You lasted the year though.
I lasted the year.
Okay.
Didn't
and how
get
did
the
that
sack.
feel? Like you said, when like a boss is saying, do this, do that, do that. Did you just like grin and bear it? Or were you like inside fuming when you're told to do something?
I wasn't fuming at that point. I think I was embarrassed. That I didn't. No, I don't like that feeling of not adding value, I guess. And I was just like, I mean, I remember like they gave me, I knew that I'd messed up when they gave me the job of clearing up the stock cupboard. And then I was literally like, wow, like this is going to take me weeks because you've not seen my bedroom. Like it's like, so.
Wow. So you finished that. Go back to uni.
Skin of my teeth, yeah.
Smash
Go back to uni.
Year.
Yeah, I think after that I was like, wow, like I need to just get a good grade so I have got to have some type of success underneath me. And then I applied for grad jobs.
Got it. And so you applied for grad jobs. Before we go there, I know you secured one. So the offer was on the table. You're about to join that company. But then did you go traveling? A summer in India happened.
A summer in India. Found myself. Live, laugh, love.
What happened? Okay,
so basically I went traveling. I was running out of money. I came across a hostel that had lots of graffiti on the wall. And I remember like I had no cash. So I had this random idea. I was like, maybe I should ask the manager if I could paint in return for a free stay. And he said, yeah. And that was the first time I'd painted since I was like at school. And I just fell in love. All over again. I was like, oh God, like, what am I doing? Like, this is happiness for me. And I hadn't experienced that. And I will say, I mean, I think it was a day later, I had emailed my grad scheme and I just basically said, hi, I've just found myself in India, and I've decided that I would really, love to become an artist. Thank you so much for the opportunity. They were like, message about like, so if we don't care, we've got someone else, no worries. And just like that, I was an artist.
But two things I've got here, right? To dig back, before you even painted, you said, I went there and I said to them, can I paint and let me stay for free? 99% of the people wouldn't even do that in the first place. Wouldn't ask. So like, have that confidence to do it. What like triggered in your mind there? Were you just like, well, obviously I'm going to do that?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. I think I don't even want to be like, oh, don't ask, don't get, because I actually really still to this day hate asking for favors, but I'm happy to ask when I know that I'm going to deliver value. And I don't know, I think there's just maybe an innate confidence in me that I knew that it was going to be a good deal for them. I don't know.
No, I like it. And
I don't like asking things, so I don't feel comfortable like that. But,
so they then give you this paint, I'm assuming, because you didn't have paint with you, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think they had wall paint left over actually. Yeah, because there was lots of stuff. Yeah, it wasn't a spray.
So then you take to this wall. Like, wow, what happened? Yeah. What you do. When was the last time you'd like really gone for it before then on that scale of painting?
I'd never done a piece that big. It was like a massive cow, like in the kitchen. Like it was ginormous. I don't know. I did do A-level art.
Okay.
But I dropped it in AS level, I guess, because that kind of thing in your head that like you can't be a success if you're an artist type thing was in my head, or like you can't make money. And I wanted to make money. Like I have big aspirations to have money. So like I didn't think that the two of them joined up. So, but yeah, no, it would have been like 5 years earlier was the last time I painted. And
then, so a day later, you then were just like, do you know what, I'm going to email them. How soon were you about to join that grad scheme?
I think it was 2 weeks.
Wow.
However, I will say that I don't think I would have quit the grad scheme if I'd have got one that I actually wanted. Like I wanted the big four, like I wanted Accenture, I wanted Deloitte, I wanted one, and I applied for all them and I got rejected from all of them. And I think that like common thread of rejection is like pretty potent in like my life and my motivations. Like it was a second rate job really, which is the story I've never really told. It's kind of like, I had the confidence to quit my job. Like, no, it wasn't a job that I loved. And also it kind of wasn't that brave because I had nothing to lose. Like I always say, even to this day, like anyone that decides to pursue entrepreneurship or decides to go out on their own after already having a job and already having a lifestyle level, having money, they're far more brave. Like, I had nothing to lose. I was a poor student anyway. I was just transferring to being a poor artist. There was, you know, it was, I mean, having known what I know now about the absolute hustle that had to go on to just like keep your head above water, maybe I wouldn't have. But when you're in it, you're in it. And when you think that you have no other option.
But credit to you, though. I know what you mean, but also credit to you, because final year of uni, everyone's applying for all these jobs. Everybody's frantic. I've got this, I've got that, I've got an offer. And it's like, you know what I mean? So like, I go back to what you said about people conforming to society and their definition of success. When we're in final year doing business, it's like, I'm going to this bank, I'm going there, and it's stressful.
Yeah, lots of people are flexing on the job offers, and
And then I can imagine people around you, and I hate this about society as well, will be like, oh my God, you're not taking your job. Like, and give you their opinion. What did mum and dad say when you like, I'm not joining that?
I actually wrote them an email.
Okay.
Because I was also like, shit, like now I'm going to have no money. So I was like, please, can I move home to Manchester? And I think they gave me 6 months. I think they said you can come back for 6 months.
Okay, fair.
I tell you what, I think I was out of there in 3. There's no bigger motivation than moving back in with your parents after uni. I tell you what, I think my mum was like, have you made money yet? And I'm like, no, mum, businesses don't make money for the first 10 years. Like, but
So then you left and then you moved to London, right?
Yeah.
And I've read somewhere you've literally moved to a box. You're living off biscuits.
Mate, I don't, honestly, you can actually survive on like actually like nothing.
But what was it? Because I remember, like, this is not about me, this is about you, but I moved into a little box. I remember it still had like mold in the corner.
Yeah.
Everybody else had the bigger rooms, a 6-bedroom house, not a glamorous 6-bedroom, like probably a 2-bedroom house where they cut every living room into 5 rooms.
Exactly.
And it's horrible, but you never forget these moments. But tell me about that. What was it like when you were in that?
I just knew that I just had to go through it. I don't know, like at every single stage, whenever I've got a tiny bit more money, I've always just like spent it all and just like bought myself a slightly nicer living situation. I think I was in that box for about, I think the first 4 to 5 years were just fully hand to mouth, like hustling for a painting commission. I remember one time I couldn't even afford to, I'd done the commission, they pay you half up front and then half when they've got it. And I couldn't afford to post the painting to get the other half. Like, it was just like hectic. But as I say, I'm happy in those moments. Like, I don't really, I don't know, I just love being like in that state of just chaos. I'm quite comfortable in it. Like,
And so the years go on, and obviously we're going to come on to things later, because I've seen you shipping out masses of shipments all around the world now, you know, compared to like the early days.
Yeah.
But there was a moment, right, where you then go to LA, I think you're at Coachella, and then again, Jenna, mutual connection here, which is so random, who had a glitter company at the time, right? Yeah. Gypsy Shrine, then puts glitter on you.
Yeah.
Tell us about that moment.
Okay, that was wild. Okay, so basically I was an artist for like a year, and I remember I didn't know Jenna, but I think she'd like, one of my friends had shared one of my artworks on Facebook, because that's how I got all my commissions back in the day, just Facebook. And she messaged me like, oh, hi, I'm setting up a face painting company, because it was at first not glitter. Really? And will you come and help me do some festivals? And I'd like vowed I'd never get a job. I was like, painting on people and going to festivals for free? Yeah, I mean, I'm not doing anything else. It sounds like a vibe. So she picked me up in a van in London. I never met her before, and we just clicked straight away. That girl is a legend. And do you know what? She has always supported women, and like she's always been a huge inspiration for me. But fast forward to, you know, we're painting people on, painting people at festivals with a bit of glitter at the side. She could tell a story better than me because it's her own bloody business. But basically, it's glitter on the side, and people are like, oh, can I have the glitter instead? She made a trend. It blew up. She put glitter on my boobs. That became like glitter boobs, a trend, like lol. Which was weird because I always hated my boobs, but I don't know. She just gave me the confidence to do it. And she was, I mean, She was making bank on it. So she was like, get your top up. But you know what she always did? She always made sure I was tagged and credited in every single picture. And she didn't have to do that. She was paying me a wage anyway. And I just remember and she basically began my following. She had gone viral and she brought me along with her basically. And I think we got our first 20,000 followers, because of Jenna. And and now she's smashing it. Oh my God, she's
but it's amazing. You never forget these people on the journey, like people who support you, but also those people who don't support you, right?
Yeah, they don't support you.
But we're not going to focus on them anyway.
I think I'm just thinking who doesn't support me. And I think that's just like, well, that's a huge motivation for me if someone tells me no.
I'm noticing,
Yeah, I'm just like, well, watch me. Thank you for nothing. See you later.
And so let's stick on that because like we keep mentioning that if somebody like rejects you, exactly that, like watch me. And I'm a bit similar to you in that regard. So someone's rejection is needed, do you think, to like motivate you and push you forward?
I think so. My partner we were talking about this the other day and he was like, Sophie, I think you do have a very kind heart, but like, I do think you're motivated by the fuck you, which is so mean. But I think I am like, But I think that's just come from just years and years of just being, I don't know. And I think that's really what I'm trying to build now, like a space where women that have otherwise not been told that they're good enough can have this platform to be like, no, I am, watch me. You know what I mean? Like that.
And when did this, because I'm going to come on to a lot of that in your amazing work and shows today, but this, you mentioned like finding your why and your purpose in India and like, with the art, when did the infusion come in of like, you know, female empowerment, which is just so needed today? And you mentioned like helping women just feel a little bit nice about themselves. When did that like drop to you?
Thank you for doing your research. That lovely.
Yeah, always.
When did that drop? That was about 5 years ago. I think I'd already been painting for 5 years. And I think that I was finally at a point where I definitely wasn't, I'm not a big artist now, but like I wasn't like, how do I put it? People were commissioning me for work. And work was selling. It's a bit about me wanting to just like roll the dice on everything again. Like I have that insane capacity to just want to risk it all. Like right now, I'm just in a point that I've just done the show at the Palladium. I'm like, how can I like break things and then like have to fix them out of like complete necessity, do you know what I mean? But it was 5 years ago and I was in Bali. I think I had a team of 5 at the time, which was absolutely ridiculous because I remember we had £8,000 in the bank account and we literally couldn't have, like literally this is like my entire life.
So what were you doing to pay them? Like just about getting by?
Always. In fact, I've actually most recently, like 6 months ago, got a CEO on board, which is like the best thing I've ever done. I should have done it earlier. And he was like Sophie, you were 3 months away from insolvency. And my dad because my dad used to help me, and my dad was like, Sophie, that's amazing. Like you've always been like now we had a good Jan, but we're fine now. But I've always just been on the edge. And I think that I was just, £8,000 in the bank. I was just like, amazing. So I think I was just ready for that next, like, what shall I do? I think for the women side of it, I'd never had the best relationship with my body growing up. Like, I always like hated my boobs and like I was always like the lanky one and like, I don't know. And I think I just wanted to make work that actually would make a difference to like how a 14-year-old girl would feel about the way they looked. And I always think like if I'd have seen like a flatter chested woman online, then it would have really helped me with the like turmoil I was going through in my head about how I felt about myself. So I think it was definitely rooted in that. It wasn't until I just gave it a crack and realized that, wow, there are so many women out there with so many insane stories. And I don't know, I think it was the first time that my work became like actually something that could make a real positive difference. Whereas before it had just been like, just getting by and just making aesthetic work to fit in people's houses to match their cushions and kind of just like get me through. Whereas then I think I was like, I've got $8,000 in the bank. I can breathe a bit.
And as the like months and years go on then, and I don't know whether it's multiple trips to LA, did you end up going back and forth there a few times?
Yeah.
Because I always picture in my head, and tell me if I'm making this up, like this will be years ago, like you on the streets of LA, but in like some bougie dress, half painting.
Yeah.
Was that part of a plan? Like, 'cause that attracts attention surely on the street.
Yeah. I mean, I think at that point, that was earlier actually. That wasn't when I was in my nude era. And I think I very quickly realized that as an artist, your purpose was to attract attention. And that would get me followers. And I knew that that wasn't actually my ultimate why, my goal, but like I knew I needed an audience to be able to market to and sell to be able to eventually do work that mattered. So the work that I actually want to do, I haven't even touched upon yet. And I really think that like the power that we could have in the future is amazing, but you know, everyone has a journey to get there. And I think I just know what that is. And I think part of that LA, like, you know, doing big stunt like things.
No, I mean, it's fascinating. And you talk about followers, because I still remember, it's like weird things that stay in my mind from years ago.
Yeah.
I think you once put something, it was just like, hi everyone, like growing my following. So if you're off out for lunch today with someone, can you tell them to follow me? Because if everyone does that, then I could double my following.
Yeah, I know.
But it's just like, it's smart little things that are just like down to earth and real, and it makes sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, every single person still that I'll meet, I'll be like, follow me on Instagram. Like, because I know that
it's great.
It's just, it's just what you've got to do. Like, and I hope I never lose that sense of like hustle. I hate that word, but like, I hope I never lose that sense of like, you know, you've still got to graft for it.
And speaking of graft then, I mean, I'm jumping back around like grafts and life here, and we're going to move on to like the next stage, because I know the business has really blown up over the years. Talk about graft. You started your first job at 14 with a paper round, right?
How the hell did you know that?
Yeah. Gotta do my digging. Was it your dad who encouraged you to get that?
Probably. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Just because like this graft then comes in at a young age, right? That like you go out, deliver those papers, and you'll get paid for it.
Yeah. But I don't think I'm like, I think lots of people do that. I think I was always looking for shortcuts and how I could like get it done though. Still to this day, I think if I'm having a drop, if I don't work myself to a point of exhaustion, which is absolutely not admirable, not healthy, but there's something in me that's like, I don't deserve it if I don't like put every single ounce of everything I have into it.
Yeah.
And that's because sometimes I feel like I'm scamming the system. I'm like, I get to do something that I literally love and it sells for so much money. So I'm just like, how can I just like put more effort in, or how can I just like leave nothing on the table? Yeah. Because there's a bit of that, I guess there's a bit of guilt there. But yeah, I guess.
But I think with you, one thing that's amazing, I think, not just why you're successful because you're such a great artist, but because you are very real and you're down to earth, and you show the behind the scenes of like, I'm working my arse off for you, you know, and what I'm doing. Plus we're going to get into like all your personal stuff and eggs and things like that at the moment. Like, you're balancing a personal life whilst being an artist. There's just so much going on. And as the years went on, I know that you mentioned before you got rejected by so many galleries. We've said rejection a lot here today.
Yeah.
Rejected by all these galleries across London. Then you open up your own gallery in Carnaby Street. And for those people listening who don't know that, that's kind of the epicenter of lifestyle and culture in London's West End. Sophie Tea opens up her own art gallery after everybody told her no. How does that feel?
That's amazing. I can't even tell you. And you know what? I was bloody stuck in Australia. I didn't even see it. I didn't see it. That massive pink one, that beacon.
I went in there.
It was ginormous. It's across 3 levels. Like, it's on the corner. You could see it from Regent Street. I never saw it. I know. But God, did that thing do bits for my career, I tell you. Like,
was that always part of the plan, or did the rejection from the galleries make you think, I'll have my own gallery, thanks?
I've never really thought about it like that, but yeah, probably. Yeah. Probably like, now I'll do it myself. I think, but things just, that was such a good moment, honestly. Yeah. I just loved it. And we've still got a presence on Carnaby Street now. We don't have that massive one.
But it's amazing. Hopefully, if people are visiting London, flying into London as well, they can go check that out.
Yeah,
as well, right?
It is good. And it's lots of international people actually that like make special trips there.
Yeah.
Oh, I just love it. I just love having, because I felt like I've always been into galleries and felt rejected, or like felt that I'm not good enough, or like felt that, oh, there's no prices on the wall and it's very clinical and the woman's like looking at me weird, like I don't deserve to be in here. And like what I wanted to create with Sophie Tea Art Gallery is like the complete opposite. Like there's a sofa there, sit on it, you can stay all day, no one's going to move you on, ask the questions, interact with it. Like, I mean, there's so many immersive elements in that gallery. I want people to take pictures, I want people to share it, I want people to have a good time and feel welcome. So like that was the whole concept. And I'm proud that we actually have achieved that, because people hang out in there all bloody day.
So good.
Yeah.
I love it. And I think going back to the gallery and having followed you over the years, there's one particular moment that it still kind of cracks me up inside, but I know it's also done a lot of good, which is the Howard incident. Right. And can you just explain that? Because I remember watching this unfold.
4 years ago on Carnaby Street, I remember this guy came in and he was going to buy, well, he said that he would buy this massive piece, and it would have been my biggest sale at the time. I remember it was £15,000, and he was like, I've got this house in Chelsea, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this with it. There's one condition, it's got to be at my house tonight at 9 p.m. because I've got a party. It's like 7:30. The gallery shuts at 7 anyway. So I've still got the girls, and I'm like, please, girls, please just say like until we get this up. This is like a massive deal. They're like, no worries. And I'm like, it needs to be at my house at 9, and then I'll buy it. So I'm like I've always just had that like inner resourcefulness, like of just like find a way. So I just instantly was just like on my Instagram, does anyone have a van? Please help me. Everyone's like, I have a van. I'm like, look, this guy's going to, I put the guy on Instagram. I was like, look, this is Howard. Like, he's going to buy the painting. Howard's like, tag me. And I'm like, all right, yeah, fine. Like, he's going to buy the painting. Like, it's the biggest thing of my career. Like, everyone's behind me. You go, girl. You've got a sale. Yeah. And basically he said, right, be right back. I'm going to go to the car and get my bank card, because the courier was on its way, because everyone had come through for me like they always do. And, basically, he just didn't come back, and I was absolutely mortified, embarrassed, because I put it all on socials and was like, yes, I was like, well done, so embarrassing. And basically, in my head, the painting had already gone, because I was just like, well, it's been sold. So I just tried to flip it into a positive and just basically said, if anyone wants this painting, then we'll do like a little raffle. So I got one of my girls at like 10 o'clock at night to do the website. And like, if you entered as little as £1, then you would get a chance to win this painting. And then overnight, the raffle made £50,000.
Unbelievable.
And then, so that money was donated to Mind, and we still work with Mind. I think we've raised, maybe don't quote me on this, but like I think close to £300,000.
Amazing.
For Mind through the artwork. But it's not my donations, other people's like donations. But
you're behind making this happen.
Yeah.
And I think this just goes from, again, this Howard, causing that, coming in, you've showed him, and you've got an impact in so many people's lives. And Mind, for people who don't know, is the biggest mental health charity, obviously, in the UK. Like, phenomenal.
I know, it's nice, and like it's those moments that I'm just like, yeah, that's why we're doing it. And that really, reminds me, like, and with the nude women paintings and stuff, like just helping as many people. I don't know. That's my why, really.
I think it's amazing. And the point is, as you're saying, like every piece of art that you're painting, every like splat of paint, it's not only fueling your purpose, but it's helping women, feel good about themselves. You're then helping people with their mental health when you're supporting Mind. Like, it is really remarkable. Aww. And, with all of this though, Sophie, I can't miss out a chapter, which is Australia, because
I know
you get stuck in Australia, right? Is this what happened?
Yeah. So I've been with my partner now for 10 years.
Wow.
We met in New York, in a bar. On one night, and then literally he called me every day on the phone for like 6 months. I fell in love on the phone, and then he messaged me like, "Oh, will you come to Australia? And I'll pay for your flight if you paint me a shark." I've always been one for swapping out paintings for things that you want, so I was like, absolutely. And then so that was 10 years ago. So we did long distance for 5 years, and then I was meant to go to Sydney for what was meant to be a week, and the day that I arrived, the international borders shut. So I say stuck because it's like more of a marketing great headline, but I had a decision to make. Am I going to go back? And, no one knew how long COVID was going to go on. But I think initially people thought it might have been a month, 2 months. But once I made the decision to stay and become a resident and get that visa, I could not leave Australia for 2 years. And that was a wild experience because I'd already gained a small amount of notoriety in London. My work was, I was really grafting for like 5 years. Yeah. I was really starting to like come into my own as an artist. I had a team of, I think, 6 at the time. We had the gallery as an opportunity. Like things were just happening for us. And I just basically had to start again.
Wow.
But, you
did it.
And I loved it. I just love that. And I think what I'm good at is at 0 to 1. I don't think I'm good at the 1 to 10.
What do you mean by that?
Because I think to scale a business, once you've created the magic and got it off the ground, it's a different set of skills that I don't have. And I'm quite happy with the fact that I don't have it, which is why it's great that my CEO now does all that, make sure that I'm stay out of jail, pay all my taxes, everyone gets their, and, follow processes. And I'm good at setting things up and finding like little clues and like ways to start things. But finishing them has always been a problem for me. So, so my move to Sydney was, fine. I loved it. But I was very much couldn't leave. So we had now I have 2 businesses, one based in Australia. So I had to get a new studio, find a new team. Everything, get new paint, understand what the paint was on the market because the consistency was different and that really upset me. Different brushes. I was literally like shipping things back and forth. And oh my God, my DHL bill. My market is like 40% UK, 30% US, and then the rest of the world, bits in Europe, nothing in Australia really. So all my DHL bills were just going straight out, like absolute bloody nightmare. So I think, I had to scale up in a lot of ways to make that work in terms of like charging higher, making sure the work was better. But also, sorry, I'm blabbing. But like, a thing that was great about Australia is that I think for the first 5 years, I was really like grinding with the work, but really out there trying to get new clients and trying to like build the profile and build the brand, which I know is so important for an artist because at the end of the day, anyone could do it. Like, I'm not particularly skilled at painting. I just like graft really hard and like do it. Like, I think I do have a degree of like flair with it, but I don't think I have like actual skills. I've learned all of that, like 100%. And I think what Australia did for me was allow me to just be blocked off from that entire side of it. Don't be trying to go to that event to be seen there and do that. Like concentrate on the artwork, and then out of that, the nude era was born. And then I really and now I'm like a massive recluse, and I'm so glad. No, I don't go out at all. So
but it's the thing is, I just want to reflect on all this because like people listening who probably want to start a business, they don't know where to start, whether they're an artist or otherwise. Like, what would you say to someone who's listening now and thinks, oh, no, it's so amazing what Sophie's done. She's such a risk taker. I just don't know where to start. Like, I've got this idea. What would you say to them? I
think, honestly, now more than ever, and it's such a great time to start a business because everyone has access on social. And I see young artists with tiny studios. It's a threat a bit for me, but also the other side of me, I'm like, okay, go anti-establishment. Like, let's go, these Instagram artists. Like, but I see, I can only speak as an artist, but I really see small artists doing amazing work and reaching a hell of a lot more people than I could have reached. Like, the time is now. And you don't even need that much money to survive. Just get yourself a talent. You can do it in your bedroom if you want. But although I do use oil paint now, and the terps is really toxic. So get a place ventilated. But
And another thing I think about you that I love is that like you don't want to like be like everybody else because you are your authentic self all the time, which I think is amazing. But a lot of people do conform into society or do what they think they should do, right? And what would you say to someone who's like, oh, like, I wish I could be a bit more like Sophie, of just like, screw it, just be me. But I end up just going back into default, like, I'll do what society expects of me.
Yeah. I think that the most important thing in creating a brand or a business where you're the face of it is to allow it to fully match who you are, because like it's exhausting to put on a mask or to put on a show and keep that up over a number of years. So like, I don't know, as an artist, I'd say the authentic piece is the most important. You know, my authentic self is like quite weird, and like I'll like go off on tangents and I'll say random stuff, but like that's okay, but that's me. Like you don't have to copy that, just be your own version. Like I've seen, you know, other people that are very reserved and they're leaning into the fact that they can there's this one guy that spends like years on his paintings and he just does like the most boring videos, but he's open about the fact, I know this video is boring, this is the same stroke, I was here when I, you know, and there's a comedic element to it, but he's leaning into what's special about him.
Yeah.
And I think that's the piece. Like you don't have to like imitate anyone else that you feel like you look up to. I think the bits that you've got to take from it is the like, oh, that she's, you know, I am really much leaning into who I am. And I've only really learned that in the last 5 years. Because I think for so long, I still have a chip on my shoulder about being accepted into establishment. I still do, like, and now I'm like I'm at a point in my career when I'm just like, like, which route should I go? Should I go deeper into like the disruptor route?
Yeah.
Or should I, you know, try and get my stamp of approval?
And when you're doing things like that big question, like how do you make a decision? Like, do you take yourself away? Do you like write down the pros and cons? Do you just be like, there, just do that?
It's so funny. I did watch your other podcast and like I was listening to the answers and it's like they all have like such like great thought processes about how they deal with like problems and issues in their life. But honestly, it just changes every day. Like whatever you feel is right. Like I don't know.
But you said that whatever you feel, right? So your gut is quite powerful, right?
It's a huge gut decision. Also, keeping my like fingers on the pulse in like the market and understanding what's trending or like where people are gravitating, where people are spending their money, because the business element of it is something I'm hugely passionate about as well. And like I speak a lot about like the artistic side and the women, but like I love business, like and understanding trends, and I love that, and finding ways.
Yeah, because in my mind I've always said this, and I hope this is in a really nice way, that I feel like Sophie's a very smart businesswoman who has an amazing skill at painting.
Oh, that's nice.
Whereas I see a lot of like artists who do a bit of business. Yeah. And I think you've got great like business acumen. You know what you do and you can drive things forward, and you've developed this amazing skill set as well. Like it's remarkable.
That's nice. I think I made a decision about 3 years ago to not lean into the business side of myself in public because I guess for business reasons, to be honest, lean into the art side because people would more likely want to buy.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I still feel that thing about like, I just always want to give a lot because I love what I do and I can't believe I get paid for it.
But do you know what? You work hard for it. And I just think that you work so hard, people see it, and you deserve every success, and you deserve being paid for, like, going back to how we started today's conversation, people saying, you know, creatives can't earn money, they shouldn't. Well, you should, because I think you are very skilled. You work damn hard. Yeah. You know, and it's not easy.
Yeah. I mean, when I think about like the emotional roller coaster I do go on like every single month, well, not month anymore, we don't have drops monthly, but
yeah,
it still is just like, I guess not healthy to like care so much about what you're doing. And that's why, again, I'm really proud and I admire Jenna, the likes of Jenna or anyone else who has a big business who can like separate or like decompartmentalize like those two aspects, business and person. And I don't do that well. I'm like such a like everything all type of person, and I can't really separate the two. So that is something that I really struggle with. But yeah.
And one of my final things though, before I go into a bit of quick fire round, then I want to go into what I believe your superpower is, which puts me on the spot right now. But it's like, how do you look after your mental health? Because I know, as you say, you push yourself to exhaustion, and you've admitted it's not always right. But how do you generally look after yourself if you're like, God, I feel drained, Gian? Like what?
I think that I am a project-based worker. So I'm all in and I'm very comfortable in that position. And then I just completely take myself out. So there'll be weeks sometimes where I'm always working, but like I'm not in the studio actually physically painting. I think that's how I do it. But that's constantly changing. Like, I mean, I'm navigating a new landscape now of living in London, and I'm here for a very specific purpose, and that is to build my profile, because I think that that's the missing piece for next. And then I'll go and hibernate again and make the work better, and like, I'm not thinking in like how my week's looking. I'm thinking like way more long term, like what's my 5-year plan?
Yeah.
And this is so funny. Everyone is knowing that like my brain, like there's a question and then I just go bling. But yeah, no, I mean and leaning into that's how I work.
No, but it makes sense, as you say, like you're your authentic self. That's how you work. You kind of, I saw something the other day, was it like, I want the work-life balance, said like Adele. She like does one big like concert and disappears for 7 years. Right.
Yeah.
But I'm like, smart. Whatever she's got going on.
Yeah.
And everybody still remembers Adele. Her profile is massive.
Yeah.
She goes away and thinks about things and then comes back and like,
yeah. I think she does that because like she writes about her life and she's an artist. So she's living in that time. So I like that because like similarly, like I had a bit of time off at the start of this year and like I froze my eggs and like now I'm making work about that. And I like that balance.
And again, it feels real and personable and your audience can relate to it.
I like Adele.
Yeah,
we should all be more like Adele, shouldn't we?
Yeah, she's great. Now, Sophie, before I share your superpower with you, I've just got a few quick round. I know you've seen some of the other shows and you're like, they're not quick, Gian, but I promise they are. Now, okay, just got a few for you. So, yeah, dinner party. This one, you can invite 3 guests, dead or alive. Who's coming?
Tracy Emin, my Nana Min, and my partner.
Oh,
I was obsessed with him.
Helps. That's nice. Oh, bless him. Okay, favorite artist other than yourself, obviously. And why?
Damien Hirst, because he completely gives 0 fucks. And I can never be that because I care so much. But I admire that side of him.
Okay. This one. Sydney or London?
London.
Oh, quick. All right, go on. Explain that one.
Sydney is beautiful. I know that I'm going to go back and settle there eventually.
Okay.
It's just so far. It's just so far. There's no getting over that flight. I did it 8 times last year. That's 32 flights.
I don't know how many
hours.
They
would have got no bloody money left. No, we're fine.
Okay. It's your final trip on Earth. 7-day trip. Where you going?
San Sebastian.
Ooh.
Very
nice.
It.
I've not been.
Oh, it's perfect. You know what? It's like the perfect split between super bougie, elite level shops, like designer, like amazing. And then like 2 minutes down the road is like cobble streets where there's like so much tapas and you can get like, I can watch people having drinks, which that is a thing of mine. I like watching people having a nice time. That's a hobby.
Oh, love that.
Yeah.
And final one, if you could have an unlimited supply of one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Creative energy.
Oh, I like it. Which you've already got a lot of.
I know,
But take even more, why not?
Yeah, Yeah. Some days you can't be asked to paint.
What do you do on those days, though? I know about to go into your superpower.
Existential crisis. Am I doing the right thing? Am I ever gonna want to paint again? The next day, everything's fine. Normally.
Okay. Right. Okay. This is a tricky one because there's so many directions I can go in with you with your superpower. Because I feel like obviously so creative. You've got such good energy about you. But there's one thing for me throughout this whole conversation that stands out more than anything. And I think it's what makes you unique, that 99% of society don't actually have this superpower. And I want to learn more about it from you because I think you're massively unconventional, right? You won't do what anybody tells you to do. You don't like the definition of success that society puts on it, the conventional way. And I love this about you because I just think you just don't care. And I know you say you do care, but you also just don't care. But what does that mean to you? Like, do you think you are quite unconventional?
Yeah, I guess so. Unconventional. Yeah.
And what does it mean to you when you're like, yeah, what's that word like?
I think, no, I like that because it's interesting you say that because like, I guess like the drive for me comes from like a deep need to fit in. But like, I like that you're saying that that's my superpower because it means the work that I've been doing, both with my artwork and with me, like growing as a woman, is like working because I think I really like Damien Hirst's, like the Damien Hirst of the world. I do want to have that attitude of like, I am who I am, and yeah, I like that.
And I just love it though, because again, like following your journey, like you're not like everyone else, and that's how it should be. And I know you're like, well, that's my authentic self, but kind of like the way you deal with the Howard incident, many people could crumble. You see an opportunity in it, you do what other people don't. And like if somebody's listening and they think, oh God, I live my life like conforming to society every single day.
Yeah.
Like they wear the same thing that everybody else is wearing, they buy the same thing that everyone else is buying. What would you say to them? If they're like, I really would like to be a bit different, I'm scared.
I would actually say that no one actually cares, honestly. Like, I think I learned that early on. Like, do you know what I learned that with? I had a nose job when I was like 22.
Yeah.
And I always hated my nose and I put it off for like 5 years. I wanted it done since I was 18, but I didn't get it done because I was worried what people would think, whether they'd think that I was vain or they'd think different of me, or, I was an artist at the time, so I wouldn't be like an artist to them. I'd be that, oh, do you remember that girl from school that had a nose job? And when I had it done, I realised no one gives a shit. Like, if you're happy living your life, everyone's happy for you. So yeah, ending on a nose job. Business podcast, ending on nose jobs.
No, love that. And you're so right. And I think that, or really final question from me, Sophie, to finish us off today, right, is that, I've put here, it's the year 2100. Going to go fast track forward, right? And there's a little family, they're walking down Carnaby Street and they see a plaque, once here was a gallery of Sophie Tea. What do you want people to remember you for? Who was Sophie Tea?
Oh, I'd like people to remember me for paving a new way for independent artists to be successful and helping women to do the things that they didn't feel like they could do.
Powerful, thank you. And I think we already know that you're doing that every single day.
Nice.
And people, I hope that, how can they find you? It's at Sophie Tea Art.
It is.
Right?
I'm trying to get the Sophie Tea and the URL, but I'm just going to lose all the tags over the year. So yeah, pop the art on.
Sophie, TEAART.
Yeah, like a cup of tea.
Like a cup of tea.
Yeah, that's not my real name. No,
I know that. And I feel like, do you ever reveal your real name?
Yeah, I mean, you can get, it's Terry.
Yeah. And I didn't want to know that. Where did the tea come in?
I just love tea.
All right. And you were like, do you know what? I'm Sophie Tea.
No, it was at uni because, when you apply for grad jobs, I didn't want any recruiters to think she's going out and getting smashed. So I just changed my name on social media. How genius is that? I know. And then when I became an artist, like 3 years later, and I was like, that's a great artist name.
And you've gone on to like play with that tea. You've had teacups. You've had all sorts going on like that.
Although, we haven't gone into teacups. I'm quite protective of not going into merch. Okay. Although I am setting up an interiors company.
Ooh.
Yeah, because I want that scale separate to Sophie Tea art because I can't push Sophie Tea art. It's magic.
Okay, well, I think we will leave it on that note. A little bit of, to follow that journey, they're going to have to find out and follow you. Interior design coming next by Sophie Tea. But Sophie, thank you so much for being on here.
You're so welcome.
I know it's been,
thank you for having me.
God, I don't know how many years. 2011 you started uni, so 13 years ago. And there's still a photo from us at like Freshers Week, which is crazy.
Oh my God. You're a couple of years older than me, aren't you?
1 year.
Oh, sorry.
Hey. Anyway, so thanks so much for being on it. It's been great having you. I wish you all the success in the world. Thanks. Also, a thank you to you, our listeners, for being part of this community. By watching, subscribing, liking, and also leaving comments on all the videos, it honestly really helps us to grow the show and to invite more incredible guests to join us in the future. Now, our plans are super exciting, and with your support, we can make this even bigger. And so if you do enjoy the show, please do hit the follow button on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're listening to the podcast. It really means so much to me and all of us at the Superpower Podcast. And if you're watching us on board your in-flight entertainment, remember to follow us when you land, or maybe you've got Wi-Fi in the sky. For now, it's a huge thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Superpower Podcast with me, Gian Power.